Good morning and welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. I'm Rick Plaskett, a certified business and leadership coach here in Columbus, Ohio. Today, as my guest, I've got Malika Jacobs. She is the owner of Array. And today we are going to dig into the company, some of her challenges, her best practices. She just shared with me a major win that I want her to share with you. And in that process, she's going to give us a peek into what it's really like to build and to operate a business. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to subscribe and like and get notifications in the future when we have new conversations. So Malika, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Rick. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Super. Hey, give us a little background of who you are, how you got to be here, and what Array is. And then I want you to finish up with that success story that you just shared with
Oh,
me
sure.
before we went on the air.
Thank you. Yeah, I can actually tie that into the beginning as well. I'll start, I won't start way at the beginning, but I did come back to Central Ohio for business school at Ohio State in 2010. I spent my high school years in Northeast Ohio, so I consider Ohio home, though I've lived sort of, all over the Midwest growing up. And I studied entrepreneurship and finance at Ohio State, and I caught the entrepreneurial bug. I took a bunch of VC classes. We went out to Silicon Valley together, and I got really interested in the tech startup world. And I actually went out to the Bay Area after I graduated and got sort of embedded and entrenched in that is the culture out there. So got in that world a bit too. Um, Ended up coming back home to Ohio about a year and a half later and was really itching to start something. So I knew that I wanted to open my own business, and I didn't feel like I knew what that meant or what that was. I was kind of looking for an opportunity. As I was making my way back from San Francisco, I stopped off in Toronto at a board game bar, and I kind of had to be dragged in. I was in Toronto for a week and somebody kept saying, "You got to go here." And I was like, "I don't know if that's really for me. I don't really play board games. I'm not sure." And so we walked in and it was just a delightful experience. It was for everyone. They did a great job making anyone feel at home. They taught the games. It was called Snakes and Lattes. This was in early 2012. Um, I had worked in restaurants and bars a lot of my life, kind of in my teens and 20s to get through college. And I thought, you know what? I think I could do this. I could bring this back to Columbus, and I think it would actually be a big hit. And I could kind of get my chops in starting something, right? In an industry that I actually knew. And so, like I always say, like any entrepreneur, I was like, how hard can it be? And you start. And turns out it's not that easy. So like a diligent, MBA grad, I started writing a business plan. I actually went back while I was writing that business plan and took a job at North Star's cafe of restaurants. So I worked at Third and Hollywood, back waiting tables, got learned a lot from that group. The folks at North Star are incredible operators of restaurants and teams here in Central Ohio through Third and Hollywood, North Star, now Brassica. And I really learned a lot kind of being back in that on the floor there. And it took me a couple of years. So 2012, we opened January of 2014. So that was 11 years ago. Um, and we rode the coattails of people in Central Ohio. I remember 16-bit opening and the previous August and kind of this whole wave of experiential kind of ways to spend time with people. So that was great for us. We opened to a lot of fanfare in Columbus and had a great few years. Opened a second location in Indianapolis, Indiana in 2017. Again, was a great experience. And then, of course, everything came to a halt one day in March of 2020. So like so many small business owners, it was just about survival. No one knew how long it would be. Everyone was sort of taking different bets on that, right? And so we threw a bunch of different stuff at the wall. We had been hosting companies and teams since we opened in 2014. We've been hosting them for 6 years in our spaces before opening to the public in the evenings. So we quickly kind of took that team bonding experience to Zoom. We really did not, we weren't thinking, oh, long-term business plan. It was just about survival. What can we do? How do we stay afloat? And it sort of just took off like wildfire from there. It was a need that people were trying to fill. How do you have connection? How do you engage employees? How do you keep them feeling good about the work they're doing and give them a break? And everyone was obviously very at a heightened level of anxiety at that time. So we had an existing database of clients. People were leaving their jobs a lot. If you remember at that time, people would take us with them to their new job. And it opened up a new market, right? We basically started working with countries or companies all over the country, all over the world. And I went back to selling this service. And in that process of talking to all these people leaders and HR leaders that were buying the service for all sorts of different things, I sort of got a peek behind the curtain at how they were working. And I became really interested in how HR teams would take this call that we were having and float the details up to their leadership and how it fit into their larger strategy and kind of the operations behind how they were working and how this fit in their larger people strategy. That just was a thread that I couldn't stop pulling at. And so a few years later, as companies kind of returned to office and, there was a whole kind of like slowdown of thinking, we had a chance to slow down and think too about kind of what we really wanted to do next, about a year and a half post when the pandemic started. Um, I thought this is my time to really think about how technology can help this problem that I'm seeing in the way that HR is operating. So, tying that full circle, it was kind of like, I wanted to think about that type of company, right? I'd had a brick and mortar company, a bar business. I'd had a services business now with the team bonding, and I was ready to sort of think about how a tech sort of playbook could work in solving this problem. So that's what I did. I took the team I had. We'd all been uncovering this problem in various ways, in the work that we were doing. And so we decided to exclusively focus on what it would look like to um, productize a tool for human resources operators to make better decisions about how they're allocating resources, time, money, and what levers that pulls for business outcomes. So that is what Array is. It's a project management driven sort of way to think about resource allocation and the human resources function and how that helps manage business outcomes and business transformation. So that's what we're working on today. And I always joke that when I open the bar, people understand how you make money in a bar. You give someone a beer, they give you money, it works, right? But in this world of tech entrepreneurship, that exchange doesn't always happen right away, or it doesn't happen in the way that you will eventually kind of get there. So it was a big win for us to, this is my big win, right? It was a big win for us to finally sell a contract this last fall. So we are our first paying customer. We have another customer that's really incredible that's on the design partnership track. Hopefully will turn into a paid customer here after that engagement. And so we're super early stage. I have an MVP out. We're looking at a V2 build of that MVP. We have our first two, engaged kind of users and design partners and customers, and it feels like we're off to the races.
Awesome, awesome. So with that, for the viewers, tell us a little bit about what your current role is with this business. You said, hey, it's a startup. We're in the single digits of clients right now, but what is your current role to keep that momentum?
That's a great question. And honestly, as of this new year, I'm flying solo for the first time. I've always operated with teams, even Kingmakers, the board game bar prior to opening, I had a GM that came on with me. I've always had a team, even in the services business. I had a team up until last year, but one of the biggest roles of early stage founders is to fundraise, right? And the
Mhm.
fundraising um, environment is tough right now. We're super early. And so finding those investors that really understand at this early stage who we are solving a problem for, how that's going to turn into a, huge opportunity. that is tough, right? And that's one of my biggest jobs is making that pitch. And so I did go out and try to make that pitch last fall. It didn't work out. We were able to raise a small round of angel capital earlier in the year. So that was great. From largely practitioners, people that are in the industry and understand the pain that we're trying to solve. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to raise a pre-seed sort of like first round of venture capital. So
Mhm.
as a result, it's just me, right? Because I can't pay a team.
Right.
I do have incredible people who I've contracted and who are supporting me as advisors. And, kind of we have a great development sort of tech shop that we work with. So there's definitely other folks that are supporting me. I don't want to sound like I'm doing this on my
Mhm.
own because I certainly couldn't. But in terms of a team that is in the trenches with me every day, that has not, that's not been the case since the early this year. So I've really had to think about what does motivate me and how do I do the work that needs to get done. Um, a lot of it right now is staying very close to the customer. So a lot of my role is just to make sure that I keep talking to as many of our, the two customers we're working with, but also keep connected to other folks that could be potential customers, keep learning about the industry and what people's challenges are, and keep, stay on top of that. And then I'm able to connect those dots between what I hear and what the product should do. A lot of what I'm managing right now is obviously you want a product to do everything, right? You have it in your head what that final amazing outcome is, but that's not how you build product, nor should it be how you build product, right? It's in very iterative stages. So thinking about how to rein in what the next features and next build is based on what I'm hearing from customers, that's my biggest job right now.
Super, super. Now, you've just hit on a common problem, whether you're a solopreneur, a mini business, or a big business in training, and that is balancing your time between the day to day, between the customers, and between the future.
Yeah.
My background is in the military, and
Mm.
I had a sergeant when I first entered my first unit as an officer. He said, Lieutenant, there are two positions that we want to see you in every time we hit the field. Okay. When we look at you and you are head down, butt up, digging the foxhole for protection, we
Hmm.
know that the energy is coming our way and we're in the defense. At
Yeah.
some point, we need to see you be the first one that is head up, butt down, looking to our future to
Yeah.
protect us. So
Yeah.
you've kind of got this teeter totter going back and forth.
Totally.
Just a ballpark figure on average, say, week,
Mm.
how would you break down percentage wise the amount of stuff you're in the business working with those customers and on the business looking to that next funding, that next milestone?
That's a great question, Rick. And I honestly, I usually think of it in seasons. So loosely aligned with the actual seasons, but also the quarters, right? So I will typically think, especially with the new year, like, okay, how do I want to spend Q1? How do I want to spend Q2, 3, and 4, right? And especially in winter in Ohio, I've really made a concerted effort to kind of hunker down and be with the customer. So I would honestly say it's probably 90-95% of my time is with customer and product this quarter. And I'm being very intentional about that and trying to stay out of my head around networking in the fundraising space. So there are some
Mm-hmm.
relationships I'm still cultivating, but founders at my stage, especially, I think, can get when it's so uncertain and there's so few proof points, it can be very easy to get caught up between what's best for the business and what investors can kind of think that you should be doing, right? So I'm really trying to be intentional about building what I know our customers need. And then in Q2, as we head into kind of, early spring, right? Late winter, um, I do intend to make it more 75-25, start thinking about going back to my lists and my fundraising network and who did I talk to last time and how do I want to check in and how do I want to update them. And then I do anticipate by summer and fall kind of flipping that and being more in a fundraising mindset and having and being less in the business at that time and having to raise some capital so that we can go on to the next wave of development and iteration. But that's kind of how I'm thinking about it right now. But I would say it's very heavy focused on customer and product right now. On purpose.
Malika, thank you. I love I absolutely understand, and I love your term of it's thinking of it as seasons.
Mhm.
You know, it's so easy to say quarter, quarter, quarter. That's
Yeah.
all. It's kind of it's bland. It's simply the
Yeah.
facts, the numbers, but seasons
Yeah.
gives it a bit of a flavor. Now, I
Hmm.
would question, you just
Hmm.
very easily
Yeah.
shared with me, but I'd like to drill down a little bit further.
Sure.
What you just shared, is that written down
Ah.
someplace?
That's a great, it is not. Though I have a line in this notepad right here that says something like along the lines of, when things are green again, I will be in a more sort of like outward facing place, right? So I do think of it sort of as hibernating for the winter. Like this is a
Mm-hmm.
very intentional hunkering down with
Mm-hmm.
our customer. But no, it is not written anywhere. It is in my head. And obviously that's something that we're encouraging our users to get out of the habit of doing, is to put it somewhere so people can see it, so I can understand how I'm not not taking my own advice. But
Yeah, I'm sorry, I would be remiss, but may I ask permission to coach you for just one
sure,
minute there?
please.
I mean, I am the business coach.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I love coaching. Please.
And what you're sharing is not alone. So
Yeah.
many business owners say, "Hey, I have this plan. It's very clear up
Mm.
here." And then when I ask to write it down, there are a million different excuses going back and forth between one ear and the other as to why we don't write it down. Doesn't take it takes too much time. If I write it down, it's going to change tomorrow. All of those. If it's not important, we make excuses.
Mm.
If it's important, we find a way to do it. And
Yeah.
the reason I say that is writing it down in the history of mankind, no one has learned how to read your mind. You know, you're married. How many times is he
Yeah.
off target? Okay. Same thing with me.
Yep.
Writing it down, when you recognize that writing your goals, just the quarterly goal, this is what I'm doing this quarter,
Mm.
put it up on the refrigerator door, the office door. When you write it down, you give the universe and you give others the ability to see where you're focused
Yeah.
and what you see as success. And if they have a way of contributing, they know how to do it then. If
Love it.
you don't write it down, so the writing it down is for others to help you. You're
Mm.
inviting the universe to align with you in this time of let me take care of my customers. As soon as
Mhm.
the first flowers start to spring, then I'll need you to help me with my fundraising. Okay. But if you don't write it down, how many times are people going to be looking at you going, are you doing the right thing right now? Should you, could you, would you? And that's not beneficial to you.
I actually have seen that play out, right? Like with folks trying to be supportive, and it's just not, that's not what I'm focused on right now. So I can hear exactly what you're saying and the value of that, of sharing out, so
Okay.
know how to support.
At one point, I was Dr. Evil, and I had one of my clients take his goal. He had been procrastinating for 6 months, would not do this. And I said, finally, write it down on a piece of paper, put it on the refrigerator door. And then, why was this important to him? And he shared he wanted to take the family to Disney World. So I
Mhm.
said, great, take a picture of the family, put some Mickey Mouse ears on everybody, and put that on your bathroom mirror.
Yep.
Every day when you get up, you see why you want to achieve this. And the entire family, when they go to get something out of the refrigerator, they can see what you're supposed to be doing. Now,
Yep.
the Dr. Evil in me was the fact that I knew that he had a 10-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, and there's nobody that's going to hold anybody accountable better than a 10 and a 12-year-old.
Correct.
It took
What you
about
said.
oh,
Yeah.
it took about a week, and after 6 months of procrastination, he finally achieved that goal. And I had Grover, the 10-year-old, calling me up on my phone. Hey, coach, dad's taking us to Disney World.
You're the best. Yeah.
You
Awesome.
know, it is about knowing all of the resources, and you write it down so those resources know how to help you.
Yeah. Love it.
End
Visibility.
of the coaching session.
Yeah. Collaboration. Great. Thank you, Rick. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Yeah.
So, listen, we've covered an awful lot of ground today in our conversation. And for those of you watching, I highly encourage you to save this and come back a few times. Malika has given us a lot of golden nuggets. And before we wrap this up today, I'd like to enter a section that I call rapid fire questions. This is a section where there's 4 or 5 questions here, Malika. I just want what's top of your mind. You ready for this? We're
Let's
going
do
to go
it.
fast.
All right.
Super. What would you say the key to success is?
Perseverance.
Fabulous. What's one piece of advice that you'd give to another business owner that's going through the exact same stage of business that you are?
Hmm. Um, there has to be balance in your life, otherwise it's not sustainable, right? So just driving forward on the business all the time is not necessarily the healthiest way to get to that end goal. It's a
Absolutely.
marathon.
I
It's
a
a marathon,
hundred
not a sprint.
and I 100% support adult recess. Take a
Hmm.
break, get recharged. Kids do
Totally.
it every single day. Why can't we? And the
Yeah, there's
same
no,
thing with mini vacations. Vacations recharge so that you can go back to it refreshed.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. What's one book that you're reading now or that you have read recently that is, you would say, very influential?
Oh, interesting. So I'll point to fiction. I'm actually reading James right now, which is the telling of Huckleberry, the adventures of Huckleberry Finn, but from Jim's perspective. And I just think it's so well written. It's so accessible. It's great. I'm really, really enjoying it.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
Last question here is, if you had one area of the business that you could immediately fix overnight and tomorrow morning it would be exactly what you want, what would that one area be?
It'd be our messaging. I don't know if, and I want to say marketing, but I also just think it's like, how do we succinctly share what we're doing so people
Mm-hmm.
recognize the problem and understand and see the value in the work that we're doing?
Fabulous. Now, before I get to the final question, I would like to ask you if someone is watching this video today and either connects with you and wants to pick your brains as a leader
Yeah.
or absolutely needs your services
Mm,
right now,
great.
what's the best way of them getting in touch with you?
Awesome. My email is Malika, Malika, at array, ARRAY, for FOR HR.com. And so the domain name is Array for HR. You can find us on LinkedIn, on the web, and reach out to me anytime on email. I'm happy to chat with anyone.
Super. And then here's the final question for you, Malika. What's most inspiring to you today?
That is a great question, Rick. What do I find inspiration with? And I think that any founder building has to be inspired by their customer, right? You have to believe that the people that are doing the work or coming in, showing up, like those people are worth building for, they're worth focusing on, that their problems or their challenges are worth solving. And I do find that to be true. And so I find that the folks that are in the seats of HR departments across the country are worth it and are really doing good work, and there's opportunity to support.
Super. Thank you so much. Hey,
Yeah.
Malika, thank you so much for joining us today and
Thanks,
sharing
Rick.
your journey. This has been fabulous. You have an entrepreneurial spirit, and that's
Thank
not
you.
something that you get from OSU or any direct education.
Correct. That is not.
It definitely shines through, and I love it.
Thank you.
And
I
to
got a
the
lot of other things from Ohio State, but I would say that, yeah, it's probably more innate than than taught, right? So,
Absolutely. So I
yeah.
do have to say this before I thank the audience for watching. OH,
IO, baby. We did it.
and we did. We got the championship.
We
Super.
did it.
Hey, audience,
Perseverance, right? I mean, that
that's
look how many
right.
people doubted. So,
And look at where the twists and turns were on
yeah,
their journey this year. Absolutely. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Marathon, not a sprint. So, there we go.
That's right. So, audience, again, thank you for watching today. If you were inspired by any of this any of this interview, please watch it again. Get in touch with Malika. She's a fabulous person. Make it a great day, and bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.